I would love to be chatting here in 2-3 years' time saying, "God, do you remember how awful it was in 2022?
We'll all be in 3D and with our VR headsets by then. We'll all be in the same room with
Yeah, either that or we'll all be floating heads on a shelf like Futurama.
Hey everybody, it's John Lamilton here alongside my good friend and business partner, Mr. Jason Brockman. We are here for another episode of the Ambitious Lifestyle Business Podcast, where as always, it is our job to help you get more customers and make more money without just working harder. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this month's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the ALB Podcast. Today we are joined by a proper influencer. And I say this because our guest today has 650,000 followers on Instagram, 1.4 million subscribers on YouTube, and I've heard of him, so that makes him a proper influencer. Welcome to the podcast, Ian Ebbs.
Hi John, hi Jason, thanks very much for having me.
Oh, fantastic. So we've known you for, how long is it now?
It's a really long time. It really is. Like sometime somewhere in a beer garden, probably back in the day in London or Plymouth or a long time back in the old school affiliate days of the A4U and all that kind of good stuff,
Yeah, we're going back 20 odd years, Kensington roof gardens.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we don't even look old enough to have known you that long. That's the thing, isn't it? I don't know how it works.
Filters, mate. Filters is how that works. What's your memories of that kind of early time here?
I think my recollection is probably I was just a kid who didn't really know what they were getting themselves into and how good they had it at the time. Like it was considerably easier to make money online, I think, back then. It was before we got our Google slaps and things like that, John. I think we've both had the same thing. I managed to avoid it for a long time, but eventually they got me. I think that was it. There was a lot of really kind of clued up people who knew a lot of what they were doing, and a lot of people who I feel like I probably got lucky a bit, really just getting into stuff, but you learn enough of the right stuff and you manage to kind of keep going and do the best you can,
Yeah, I don't think at the time any of us realised how good we had it, how much of a gravy train it really was. It's only in hindsight we look back and think what we thought was hard work then was actually right place, right time, a little bit of luck, and just riding the coattails of an industry that exploded because it was, the internet was suddenly got momentum, didn't it?
Yeah, and everybody just found ways of making money, and if you could make money for other people, then they were super happy to have you, and they would treat you royally. I mean, I got taken to Whistler by I Want One of Those on a snowboarding trip one year, and we went to Barbados with Affiliate Future and all kind of stuff like that. It was incredible. And that, I think, to do one of those, I ended up just like didn't do it before, but I saw this competition. I was like, oh, I can do that. And for about 3 or 4 months, I was selling fridges and TVs and all sorts of other stuff just to get enough entries in the draw to get a trip to Whistler, and off we went. Yeah, just random things and that was the thing. You could sell anything online then. You didn't really have to have anything specific. And if you knew what you were doing, you could jump on the right thing and sell a bunch of TVs. And people, my friends were just like, I had a real understanding of what I was doing, and that was the thing. If you did know what you were doing at the time, then you could just sell anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there was a real cut between Google chasing what we were doing at the time, and then all of a sudden we started then having to chase them. So SEO became a thing then, because it was we know how to play Google. We can do this. It's a new thing. We know how it works. We can manipulate it. We can do the stuff with it, I guess, a little bit. And then all of a sudden Google kind of got wise to it, I think, and then suddenly decided we started playing catch up. We started playing chase, and actually they were making the changes, and we were following them. And it seemed to be there was a big switch, I think, which turned that around, wasn't it?
Totally. I think it got to the point where there was too many people knew how to play the game, and they were manipulating things in ways that Google didn't want to see happening. And then they started moving the goalposts, and then suddenly we actually had to react and have a proper business almost, to survive it.
We were all told that at the time, but I don't think we believed it. You know, everyone said, the industry needs to mature, it needs to grow up. And there was that famous comment about grubby affiliates in their grubby little studios, you know, siphoning off our revenue. And I think a lot of us affiliates kind of were emboldened behind that statement and embraced it and said, right, you want to call us grubby little affiliates? We'll show you what these grubby little affiliates can achieve.
Yes.
And we went up against the big boys. And that was, I think, the beauty was you did have one-man bands in their bedrooms, completely self-taught, outperforming massive brands with huge marketing budgets.
Yeah, and I think like some of that's just that like being able to adapt and learn those things so quickly. It would have taken like big business takes like 3 months to like sign anything off, and in that period of time you would have made like thousands of commissions just like doing what you wanted, that changing and following the new trick or whatever it was that you needed to do well, you know.
Yeah, but let's face it, the big brands are not going, right, how can we get ourselves a ski trip to Whistler by selling a few more TVs? Oh, look, there's a telephone that plays Karma Chameleon. I'm going to flog a load of these. Oh, look, I can...
Yeah, I remember doing a whole bunch of Crazy Frog just because you could sell the ringtone, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly, the Crazy Frog ringtone. Everyone talks about that. It was a thing for about, 6 weeks? Mm-hmm. But that was the affiliate thing, was you'd spot an opportunity like that and you'd just grasp that opportunity. You'd get a website up, you'd throw some links at it, you'd optimize it for maybe Google at that time, maybe Alta Vista, maybe Yahoo. You'd throw some traffic at it, you'd earn some commissions. That site would then bomb and you'd be on to the next opportunity.
Totally. And that's kind of really how I ended up getting into doing like the YouTube stuff, is that we had the websites and we used to just make YouTube videos to sit alongside and like tell people information. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until like a couple of them like started working and we kind of were like, oh, okay. And it's the exact same thing again. It's like, this is working, I'm going to jump on it. And then just like beat it to a death to try and do as much as we could with it. And like, then you get the results out of it. And that's totally how we got like that step into doing that, was just like first mover advantage. There's no way. Well, actually, I feel like I probably could do it now because I know the ins and outs of it really well, but also because I've got the connections and I've got the little tricks and stuff to do it. But most people nowadays couldn't go and start a YouTube channel and have the success. Now, I wouldn't say that it happened straight away. And the best thing was I was doing it at the same time as running my other stuff. So I actually could use the earnings from the affiliate to fund the YouTube. So that would actually make a loss. But it didn't matter because I had the extra money to throw at it and grow it, and I could see the potential of it. And in fact, I say I could see the potential of it. I couldn't see the potential of it because I wouldn't have told you now that I would earn what we get per view on YouTube now back then. And that's a period of time it dropped, and YouTube, what they were paying out in advertising revenue, fell back. It's actually come back again since then, and they show more ads and things like that to try and boost it up. But I never would have guessed that you could earn as much from YouTube as like we do. And we're not like a particularly big channel in the scheme of things. We're not like PewDiePie or Mr. Beast or anything like that. So the amount of money that those channels are making is like ridiculous. But even like a small scale channel can do well. In fact, I saw something in the newspaper. Well, not newspaper, it's like online. Just today, there's a 70-year-old in New Zealand, and he has a YouTube channel about model aircrafts and helicopters or something like that. And he said he's not taking a pension because he's making enough from his YouTube channel. He doesn't need it.
That's fantastic. Anybody listening to this, and I hear a few of these stories that I'm too old, I could never do that. How can I possibly get started? I'm X number of years old. Just listen to that again. 70 years old, just got a hobby, gets a camera out or gets his camera phone, creates videos, creates content that people want to engage with and enjoy, and is earning enough that he doesn't need to take a pension.
Yeah, so like the gist of his last upload they were talking about, and I think it's got like 140,000 views in the last 2 weeks or something. And like the way he's talking about it, like he sounds like a YouTuber. He's going, oh, well, I know like how to like have like a captivating like thumbnail, and I know how to like get like a teasing like title. And he's like talking all the talk. It's awesome. And then he happened to do like I think it's like a remote control like Russian helicopter. And so he's then pouncing on something that's like happening at the moment. Yeah. And like people were like watching it. And I think he says something like, you won't believe what happens or something in the title. And like, so he's hooked people in, and he's got this remote control. And I think I haven't seen it, but the gist I understand is that it looks like it's an actual helicopter flying around, and then you realize that actually it's just him with a remote control.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's much like we were saying about the affiliate days. You know, at 70 years old there, he's just figured out how to play the game. He's figured out that actually if you use a clickbaity headline, if you use an engaging thumbnail, if you use the element of surprise within your storytelling within a few minutes of a video, you will have good results. And he's just figured that out for himself. And who says you can't teach no dog new tricks?
Yeah, totally. And I feel that sometimes I'm like listen to some of the things in the 1% group about like when we're talking about like investing and money and things like that. And I'm like, oh, I should have done that like 20 years ago. But then you like listen to it. So, well, you've still got plenty of time. You're not that old. You like always got something that you can do and you can learn and you can push on with something. So it's never too late to have a go at anything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I've had a few conversations with 1%ers recently, particularly some of the newer 1%ers, and very, very interesting the stories they tell themselves based on age. Because I've heard everything from, I'm 63, so that's it for me. You know, I've got a couple of years left, to I'm 42 and I want to retire by 50. You know, I mean, we've mentioned on this podcast a few times my plan to live to 123. It was originally 120, but Jason pointed out that if I live to 123, that will be the year 2100, and I will have lived in 3 different centuries, and that's just cool. So, based on that, I've still got 79 years left. So, that's more than enough time to do anything I want to do. I could learn the new skill that I don't even know exists yet. I could start a brand new investment portfolio from scratch now and still have a very good income from that over my lifetime, as long as I do make it to 123.
Yeah.
But the amount of people I listen to that, you know, they think they get to 55 and, well, that's it. That's the end of my useful life. Well, yeah, maybe a generation or two ago when you were working on the building sites or down the mines, but now that we're sat at desks creating YouTube videos or building websites, who's to say we need to stop in our 60s, 70s or beyond?
Totally. I think that's one of the things that's kind of quite interesting, and as well as all of the kind of business side of things. Like, I think if you were to find a picture of you and I when we were in that beer garden or wherever it happened to be, both of us look quite different than we did then, and both of us have got very different lifestyles than we did then. You know, like I would have been working till like 4 or 5 in the morning and then getting up and whenever and all that kind of going to the pub and doing all that stuff, and it doesn't really happen anymore because we're trying to stretch it out as long as possible, aren't we? Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, fortunately, there was not such a thing as social media when we first started going to these things, because otherwise there would be lasting evidence of our debauchery and everything that happened.
Absolutely. I'm not sure really think the world is a luckier place for all of that. But yeah, I'm not sure for kids nowadays, you know, like when they go out and stuff, like it's just I think maybe it's different, you know, whether I don't really know how it goes for them, like whether they even would be like we were, because we could forget it and next day, you know?
Yeah. The joys of youth, I say, being able to pull an all-nighter and then just go out and get drunk. It's not something I would want to replicate now. As I said, it's all about longevity. Let's make that hill of time as long as we can. So one of the things obviously we wanted to chat to you about, Ian, is you are no longer in the UK, and you've moved over to New Zealand. Was that 2009?
Was it? Yeah, it could well be a long time ago. That probably sounds about right. I keep thinking it's been about 10 years, but yes, it's getting out there now. What's that, 13, 14, heading out that way years. So yeah, long time.
How did that come about?
I have my wife is American, mm-hmm. and we met in England. But I actually met her. Well, I went on a trip to the US to go to an internet conference, having all that kind of good time. I think it was in Las Vegas or something. Anyway, so she came and met me. We'd been keeping in contact online a lot. And I decided, you know what, like this might work out. So I had nothing to tie me down. I was living at my friend's house. I came home and said to him, you know what, I think I'm going to move to America. And so I went there for 3 months on the pretext of training to cycle across Mexico, because it was hillier there in Seattle than it was in England, she went for it. So it was all good. So I did my training and I worked from a laptop there, just kept going. Don't tell the IRS though, because they did once lock me up in the airport thinking that I was trying to work illegally in the US, but I never really did. I had a UK company, so I wasn't working there. It's not true. So we were in the US, then we came back to the UK because she kind of had the Mary Poppins view of England, you know, like she was real keen on coming to England, and it didn't really work for us in that way. She got a job, but she didn't really necessarily like being where she was. We weren't near any friends and stuff. So we said, she's American, I'm English, let's move to Canada.
Obviously, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Well, to us at the time. But then we were like, well, what if we don't like Canada? And she'd been working pretty hard in the job that she was doing. She really wanted a beach holiday. So we said, okay, well, look, we'll go travel the world for a year and we'll work out where we want to go. Mm-hmm. And so we went to Bali just for a beach holiday. We went to Australia to test it out. We were considering Australia. We came to New Zealand. Then we went to Fiji for another beach holiday. Then we went to the US to see a family a little bit. We went to Mexico. We seriously considered moving to Mexico. On reflection, probably a good choice now, like safety-wise. But also we just didn't feel like we could bring kids up in Mexico kind of explaining the disparity like to them, you know, like it's pretty difficult. And then we went and did Canada, and we kind of went all the way around the US and kind of in and out of Canada and checked it out. And then after being all the way around the world, we decided that actually the place we wanted to be was New Zealand. We liked it the most. It kind of it probably is a bit like England, like 10 years behind. So that kind of suited my wife's vision of how she kind of wanted things to be. It's relaxed kind of lifestyle. But also we ended up in Christchurch, which has got a international airport. So we could get back to the UK in as short as a day. It only takes a day to get back. 24 hours on a plane, you can get back via Singapore or Sydney or Dubai or whichever way you go. And it has like beaches nearby, mountains nearby. So we could go snowboarding, skiing, go to the beach, have a swim, whatever you wanted to do. And just like a nice climate as well. But yeah, definitely has that kind of English vibe to it as well. So yeah, that's how we ended up in New Zealand. Unfortunately, I managed to use the fact that I had a UK company. I then set up a New Zealand company before we even moved to New Zealand, and then just started putting my affiliate earnings into the New Zealand company and said, hey, we've got a company going. Can we move on entrepreneur visa? They said, sure. And then they just 3 or 4 years later gave us like residency. Mm-hmm. But that came down to the fact of us needing to like contribute to society. And so paying your taxes doesn't count. You had to employ people or do some other things like that. So we ended up having some staff in the company here as well. And then by employing people over a number of years, they gave us permanent residency. So so now we're officially allowed to stay. Although with COVID and things like that, I don't know if we'd get back in if we left, but we're now able to apply for citizenship if we wanted to. So I might have to do that.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's every now and then I see some of the photos that you share. And it's gorgeous countryside. It's funny actually, I remember when I was a kid, my dad always wanted to move to New Zealand, and it was always a bone of contention because my mum refused to leave Plymouth. She's like, no, this is where our roots is. My mum lives down the road and I can't possibly leave. So as a kid, I just kept hearing we should be in New Zealand now. I really wanted to be in New Zealand. So it's just in the back of my mind is like, because I've got a similar thing whereby every winter, and we started this call, by the way, with a little moan from me that it was a massive 2 degrees outside. I hate the winter in the UK. So for me, I would love to spend my winters or the UK winters somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere. So, can you sell me on New Zealand? Is it too hot? Are there big spiders? Am I going to be taxed to the hilt? And having read some of your bio, is my house going to collapse because of an earthquake?
The answer is yes to some of that. So yeah, interestingly, like when we were here, like give it like 2 years, we had I think the first earthquake maybe was in 2011. And that kind of shook us out of bed at 4 a.m. and wasn't particularly fun, but we managed to make it through that one. And then the following year they had another one a bit closer to home, which was enough to knock the chimney down, and the boiler came out of the cupboard, and the windows, we had nice big glass windows that looked out onto the mountains. And there was just a big crack through that. And yeah, we had to move out of our house, and we ended up living with some really good friends of ours now, actually, who looked after us for 3 months, took us and their cats in. And I think we'd only met them maybe 3 or 4 times, just going out for a drink and stuff before. But yeah, so really good friends of ours now. They've got 2 kind of daughters similar age to our daughters. So yeah, a lot of good people in New Zealand, really. And as for the weather, yeah, so the good thing is that it's pretty nice in the summer, good sunshine. And then in the winter, it does get cold. You will get a bit of snow here and there, but usually you have to drive to it. It doesn't really settle in Christchurch. And usually you get like a good frost of the morning, but then the sun will come out and melt it down. So you can still get sunburned in the winter. And we also get a nor'wester wind that comes through. So a lot of times when it's supposed to be raining, we get a nor'wester instead. So the west coast of New Zealand will get a dump of rain, and then it will just create this wind that goes across into Christchurch, and we get like a 25-degree day. And we're pretty lucky with that, because most of the rest of New Zealand doesn't get that. And in fact, it only happens a couple of places in the world. I think Canada somewhere get these Chinook winds, I think they call them, and they call them something else in China or something, but it's to do with where the mountains sit. So yeah, obviously we've got the tectonic plates creating Mount Cook and all the mountains around us, which do contribute to the earthquakes, but it also contributes to a really stunning scenery. So we'll take that. There are no poisonous spiders. I think there is a poisonous snail, but do well to find that. And
I think I'm not sure
run for your lives.
Yeah, that's it. It should be all right. You can outrun it.
Fantastic. Let's talk YouTube for a little bit, because as I said at the top of the episode, 1.4 million subscribers, and people will obviously focus there and say, great, how do I get that? Well, looking back through your bio, the way we get there is probably a decade of constant, never-ending work, isn't it?
Yeah. I was talking to somebody in another business group, and I think that we've made like 1,500 videos or something. Like I kept like scrolling through to get to the bottom of, and I was like, wow. Yeah, a lot of videos. So started just making the odd video. They started to work. We did some collaborations, and we got like views on things. I mean, like we were thinking, oh, we're doing really well here. We're getting 1,000 views a video, like we're loving that. We just thought it was amazing. And it was, because comparatively at the time, other people weren't getting huge views either. So it was like decent to see that, and we could see the potential in it. And yeah, then we just slowly realized that this was something that could have legs. And so as I was talking about employing people, I had somebody who was working with me, and the 2 of us would do like the regular affiliate stuff. And then we started doing like a bit of the video things as well, and kind of getting creative with it. And I actually ended up employing somebody full time to be like a YouTube presenter. And that was kind of the thing that took us to that next level of being able to make a lot of content. And so we got to a phase where we ended up putting out, because YouTube had like as we talked about with Google and the way they changed the rules of SEO, they changed the rules of the YouTube as well, because we don't get as many views as we used to at our peak on the channel. Like it's still that evergreen asset. Like we're still getting views on videos that are years old, and it's fantastic, but we're not as viral as perhaps we were at the time, because the rules of how engagement works on the systems have changed, and it's not so clickbaity on those thumbnails as it used to be. We used to be really good at getting clickbaity things like that, but also you have to get people kind of wanting to keep watching all the time. And so that's like can be hard to achieve on some videos. But sorry, going back to what my point was, that we got to position where we had a system that was working, and then we just started just cranking them out, and like it was just like progressively building it up more and more. And we used to talk about like getting like a wave. And so what we would do is we knew is like if we could get one good video, then we'd stack another good video behind it, and then another one, and then another one, and it would just build up this wave of traffic. Whilst if we like left it too long, then you get like kind of, it would just dip down again, and we needed to build up all this momentum to like push it forwards. And that's one of the things, and one of the reasons probably why is we don't get as many views now as we did before, is that we don't go for that wave as much, because they changed the way it works a bit, and you couldn't get as successful. And also it was just really, really hard work making a quality video a day. And like these were like really engaging, high production. Like we always worked on like, they've got to be like good quality. We weren't just kind of shaky camera, or like we were like using drones like early on. Like we've always tried to get 2 or 3 angles. We'd try and get like replays, slow-mos. Like we put so much effort into making these videos, and it was so frustrating sometimes, because if like Google didn't like it, then you just put all this effort in and you got nothing for it, and nobody ever sees it. We once made a video that I think probably had, we filmed 9 episodes to it, and we spent a day on each episode, and we must have filmed at least 2 or 3 hours of footage on each one. And then it probably took us like a month to fit it all together. And that video maybe has only ever got 30,000 views. Whilst I know that there's another video that I made that was literally like me hanging around outside with the boys who were working with me, and my father-in-law, who randomly appears in the background wearing a white boiler suit, looking like he's out of like Breaking Bad. He's in the background of it because he's been like helping paint the house or something. And like literally like we just like got a hot knife out, chopped a boot in half, said, whoa, look at that. And that video did like 8 million views or something, you know, like it's probably more on than that, to be honest now. But like, yeah, there he is like lurking in the background. But that's like the difference between like, sometimes you put so much effort in, but if it's not on the right thing, or it doesn't suit the rules of YouTube, and it doesn't get the views that you want. So yeah, it's a challenge psychologically sometimes. And I think that's one of the hardest things of probably being in business, I find actually, is like you can put so much effort into stuff sometimes, and if it doesn't work out, it can be so demoralizing, and you have to get used to riding that, like the highs and lows. And I think that's the thing that we probably had when we started out in business, going back to what we were talking about before, is it was just so many highs. It was just too easy. You didn't learn like how to be resilient. And then suddenly like things go wrong, and then you've got to learn to like be resilient, try things again, do it differently, figure out what's going on, like cut back, like your stories about like when you had to fire like your staff, like I've had to do the same thing, like just hard business lessons that when you're a 20-year-old internet entrepreneur, you have no idea of what's coming.
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly I felt that, well, I'm just a genius. I've got the golden touch because I had this idea and it worked. I had that idea and that worked. And everything that I touch works. Yeah, because that was just right place, right time, and it happened to work. It's like you say, you know, how do you know how to be resilient unless things occasionally go wrong for no reason that you can see? You've done everything right, but as you said, Google just don't like that one. The other thing I suppose to take away from that for anyone listening to this, thinking about, you know, actually how do I get started, is how do you create those first few bits of content without saying, right, I need to buy the most expensive camera, I need to buy the best piece of kit I can, I need to spend 6 months editing this and then find out if it works. We need to flip that on its head and say, how can I get something out there in a week and find out if it works? And if it works, I'll upgrade the camera, I'll upgrade the mic, I'll upgrade the production value, I'll upgrade the editing, everything sort of follows that way.
Totally. And that was one of the things that like when I had a lot of staff and we were trying to work out what was going on, like they hated it, but like I introduced like, we got to have like this checklist, we've got to like have this stats, and like I had like a degree in accounting and finance, and like I used to do like I did like statistics A level. Like I love like the numbers like side of it, and like I was just like trying to work out like looking at the click-through rates on thumbnails, like looking at the retention on videos, taking all these stats. It was like that pie video, all the numbers are floating around, you know, yeah, just trying to get them to get all this information and try and like follow the secret formula. But even then, sometimes you just couldn't get it right. But you can, as well, as you say, work it out. Like there were videos that these guys used to love making when we worked, but I had to say, we can't make these anymore. Like YouTube doesn't want them. We have to make this type of video because this is what it wants, which is a difficult conversation to have with people, but it had to be done.
It is. And I talk in Evergreen Assets about giving people what they want, and particularly when you're doing stuff for Google, whether that's on the YouTube front or SEO, giving them what they want. What they want is good content for their users. So, as you said earlier, you could have the best thumbnail, really good clickbaity title, but if you don't deliver on that for the viewers, they are going to just click back. They're going to stop watching the video, which is not what YouTube want. Because if YouTube is full of videos like that, people are going to stop watching YouTube, and that's not what Google wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, one of the reasons we wanted to chat to you as well, Ian, is you've been one of our longest serving one percenters.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I noticed that because I was talking to a former one percenter today, and we were having a conversation, and I was like, I'll just have a look and see, because I couldn't remember when I joined, but like 2017. And in fact, I think there's only one person in the group who's been in there longer than me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow.
And I think, because I dug it out, July 17, that is the same month that Big Ideas for Small Businesses was released. So it must have been at that same time. So one of the questions we normally ask our guests is, how has the 1% Club helped you? But I think we're going to change that question for you, Ian. So right. I would love to know, over those last almost 5 years, how has the 1% Club changed?
Yeah, interesting. So like just for some backstory, 2017 was when I was having this kind of, I need to change things in my business kind of mindset and work things out. It was also, my son is about to go to school. So he's my youngest and he's about to go to school now. So that makes him very nearly 5. And so when my wife was on maternity leave, no, I had paternity leave when he was born, I started listening to the to these podcasts, the very first ones. And I listened to like maybe 6 of them in a row or something. Like I caught up with everything, you know, and that got me kind of into things and listening. But yeah, sorry, to answer your question, how's things changed?
The podcasts have got a bit better.
Well, you're getting better guests on, I'll give you that, yeah. No, so I mean, like, I think initially it was a lot of like kind of trying to like pair people up and get people to like be accountability and stuff. And like, it's just so refined, you know, like you guys have got like 5 years of like, you guys love your processes and all that kind of stuff, you know, and you've got 5 years of like how to do this properly. So like, it's interesting. I see like your emails coming through, and I know like the way you onboard people and all that kind of stuff's like just trying to bring people in. It's interesting to see that like some people will leave, and then recently we've had some people come back again. So people kind of like stepped away from it because it gets like, I find it's too much information sometimes, or it's not the right time for that information. Yeah. But when it is the right time, then you want to consume a lot of it. And that's why it's good that you guys have got like the website, so you can get on there and watch like the videos. And so like, I hardly ever join any calls live, just because I like to listen to you guys at 1.5 speed. And that way I can get more in. I've got another mastermind I'm in as well, and I just don't have time in the week to consume all that content. So like, I'll save up the ones I want to watch, and then I'll just sit and get those kind of consumed when I've got the time. But yeah, so like we used to do like kind of the old hot seat style calls, which would be good for a while, but then we kind of burned through it because most of the good questions had kind of been got through. I know lately you guys added in like the book reviews, which I think is really interesting. And I think really good for like getting people into those like good books and finding the good aspects from them. And like, it's been quite good for me because I've been like, oh, I've read that one, or oh, I've read that one. And so like, oh, I've just finished that one. So I'm on the right track. I'm doing the right stuff. So kind of all like absorbing that kind of good information. And then like, I really like the way that the calls have been changed, like in the last, like, well, probably 12 months, 18 months, maybe, of like just giving them those topics and like getting the guests in as well. Like I'm looking forward to the Plymouth chairman coming in. And then obviously like Ratner was like a great one. Super interesting to get Neville Wright in with his book. And like, yeah, just like having that stuff in is like just taking it to that next level. Yeah. And like, yeah, it's very cool to see the way that it's developed, really. It's really been like honed and refined, and you get rid of the stuff that doesn't work and you do more of the stuff that does work, as same as we do with a YouTube video or a affiliate website or whatever we're doing. It's all the same stuff, isn't it? But yeah, you guys have done a really great job, really, of putting it together. So I'm pleased to still be part of it. And whilst I might not interact all the time, I'm definitely kind of soaking up their stuff. And it's great. People can ask questions on the Facebook and find out what they need to know about a variety of topics. And like, there's so many like good people involved as well now. And that's the thing as well, like not necessarily people are going to comment all the time, but like I have like, well, I think you guys have got over 100 people in the group or something, but like, I feel like I probably personally know at least 20 of them, and I wouldn't feel uncomfortable going to them and saying, oh, well, Rupert, can you tell me about this? Or, you know, like whoever it happens to be, just trying to ask them for some advice on something, because I know that that person is probably the best person I personally have any idea of finding. And I love the concept of like surrounding yourself by like people who are like, can give you knowledge, who like whoever you surround yourself is what it's going to be. And like, I surround myself with like nobody at the moment. There's nobody else in the office apart from my kids when they come in and all that kind of stuff. I don't have anybody to bounce stuff off, but I feel like I do have that like boardroom of people to talk to if I need to and find stuff out. And like so many good like interactions, things have come out of the 1% group. I've got like an accountability partner that I can go to that like we just talk about what's going on. Also like talking with Clark's been like super good. Like he's just like same as the affiliate days. Like he's such a clever guy. He's so like willing to help as well. And like his like I wouldn't have like 2-3 VAs in the Philippines if it wasn't for like listening to Clark's suggestions and then like just jumping on that. And yeah, it's been awesome to be able to kind of get so many tips from so many different places, you know.
Fantastic. That's really, really, really good to hear, Ian. I say, as you said just now, we've had a few 1%ers return to the fold in the last intake, and conversations I've had with them really exciting, because I said, look, you know, you've stepped away for maybe 6 months or maybe 12 months or 18 months. You get to see what look like step changes in the club. You step away, you come back, oh, it's very different. I said, but just like the whole 1% ethos of just leaving the business 1% better every week, this didn't happen in step changes. This happened one process at a time, 1 week at a time. We've just put all these little things in place, and it is constant, never-ending improvement. So yeah, over those 5 years, if I think back to what it looked like in July 17, just, you said, the quality of 1%er has improved, the quality of accountability has improved, the quality of the content that we're putting out there, the evergreen assets we've got in terms of the members area is so much better. But also, and Jace, you've probably got this as well as me, is we know what's coming. We know the improvements we want to make as well. So I would love to be chatting here in 2-3 years' time saying, do you remember how awful it was in 2022?
We'll all be in 3D and with our VR headsets by then. We'll all be in the same room with
yeah, either that or we'll all be floating heads on a shelf like Futurama.
Well, you should say that. I have found something to do that. So yeah, we might do that on one of these coaching calls.
Oh dear. Oh, well, I'm looking forward to that then, Jason. Fantastic. We always end with the same question. In fact, I'm going to let Jason ask the question, because this is traditionally your question, isn't it, Jason?
Traditionally, I get to say one thing during the... Yeah, no, that's it. Traditionally, to ask, what does an ambitious lifestyle business look like to you?
Yeah, well, I knew you were going to ask me this, because I've listened to this before. I know the questions, so I knew to expect this. So my thought was that I think for me, it's like the opportunity to have my own like family business that I get to run And like now, like I get to have the kids involved. Like they come in and like burst in on Zoom calls, and they'll come in the office whenever they want, like, so they can find and see me like whenever they want. I'm always involved, but equally, like I can shut myself off if I need to. But it's an opportunity to be able to fund the lifestyle that we want to have, and like do the things that we wanted to enjoy. And like I was just reflecting on it. So like when I started off, I was like me on my own. And then my dad got to the age of retirement, and he retired from the job that he was doing, making, he was like a salesman in an aircraft company, but he was super into rugby. And I had the opportunity of spending like 2 or 3 years before he died, working with him on his passion. And like, he like loved it. I got to like just spend, like the two of us would sit in an office together in England, like in his house. And like, we just got to work together and like have fun and like have success, like on something that he really cared about. And like, in fact, there's even like YouTube videos with him in, which is like a pretty nice little memory to have. And then now, like I've got like, my son will join in videos, like he wants to like be in them, like doing stupid stuff. And I don't really like having the kids like on screen, but I'll have like, you can see their, like, I know you can see their feet, or they'll film me and things like that. So it's so great to like have them involved in the business. And so like, it's become like this like 3-generational business already. And like my son at the moment, he's, as I say, he's like 5, but he's like super into like his go-karts and like his race cars. We just went to the racetrack last weekend. So I have a feeling that there may be a motorsport YouTube channel coming soon. But then if you get to business expense, like cool things like that, then I think that's like a very nice business to have, when you can have like having fun with your family being your job is pretty awesome for me.
Fantastic. Love it.
I'm writing that down. Fun with family is the job. That's great.
And business expensive, I think it was what. That's the bit I caught out of it.
It's funny that.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like the whole when we traveled around the world, like my wife was like, "Oh yeah, we should like rough it. We should do all that." I was like, "Absolutely not. I'm taking my laptop, and we are staying in like motels at the least. And like if we go somewhere nice, we'll stay in a hotel." And so we got like some nice hotels and got a really good deal on one of the old like hot deal things in Chicago. Stayed at an amazing place there. And then Queenstown, we had a great hotel. But I was like, absolutely not. This is like a business, and if we need to, we'll review something, and we're going to business expense the lot,
Just in case the IRS is listening, there were business discussions that happened in these hotels. Yeah.
Well, it depends. Not the ones in America, if they're still worried about the fact that I was supposedly working there when I shouldn't be. Because I wasn't.
That's very clear, okay? Anybody listening from the IRS, he was not working in the States.
Exactly.
Purely as a tourist.
Exactly. A lot of cycling on those big hills, getting ready. That's right.
Fantastic. Where can anyone find you if they want to get in touch with you, Ian?
They could probably find me on YouTube. If you type in football boots, you'd probably find me making some kind of stupid video on there, doing something silly. There's normal ones showing people what they look like, but footballboots.co.uk is the website. That's the most of the stuff. You can find anything about me on there if you want to. If you're so inclined, I can't imagine there's too many people. Maybe the kids would be into some football boots, maybe, but and I'll let you know about the motorsport channel when it comes out.
Well, this episode is obviously coming out in May, so it might be out by then. You never know.
Well, there you go. Yep, it's his birthday in May, so it could be.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much for joining us here.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers, mate.
So there we are, another episode in the can. How was it for you? Please let us know. However you listen to these podcasts, please leave a review on that platform. Let us know what we can do better, what you like, what you don't like, and how we can improve to make this show even better for you. We'll see you next time.